As Vlada mentioned, I'm Emma, I'm from Armenia, and I'm a public speaking trainer. I am going to share my presentation with you right now, and just a second. Okay, Vlada, can you see the presentation? Is it visible?
Not yet. Give me a second. Yeah, now I do.
Okay, great. So, as Vlada mentioned, I'm representing Think Studio and TEDx Yerevan. I'm working at both of them. Let me introduce, first of all, what are both of them, what we are doing, and I'll get to stages and layers of public speaking. Firstly, TEDx Yerevan was founded in 2009, and it is basically an Armenian, let's say, branch of organizing TED-like conferences. And we are organizing biggest TEDx conferences in Armenia since 2009. When working with speakers during these conferences, we figured out that we need a whole public speaking training program that will help us to focus on different issues and different opportunities of public speaking. And so years later, Think Studio School was founded. And the basis of it is to have not only public speaking, but also leadership skills and strategic planning coaching programs. So what is our main difference? It is that our whole program is based on neuroscience. And let me give you a brief idea of what that is. So when having issues in public speaking or in leadership or in strategic planning, we come across different issues that we try to solve. So the thing is that we do not try to solve the problem, realizing what are the circumstances of it, but we rather go into our brain. That's why we say that neuroscience is the base of our program. We try to figure out what happens in our brain so that we have such a problem. And we try to fix the problem, and we try to keep the balance in our brain to escape the problem, not just to solve it. So what is basically Think Studio and what do we do here? We are an innovative consulting and coaching initiative, and we are offering a journey of personal and professional growth. People who are using all of the techniques that we have created and we are sharing are experiencing growth both on their professional level and personal. And you can see one of the pictures of our journeys. This is the favorite one of mine. This is TEDx Yerevan 2016 when Think Studio was already created and all of the programs that we have created and I'm going to share with you today were already in use. And these are the corporations that have trusted us their public speaking, leadership, and strategic planning issues and whatever we could help them. So you can see different offices of United Nations, Council of Europe, Eurasia Foundation, many international companies. You can see some of the top IT companies like Pixart, SolarLearn, CodeFights, Bad Construct, and some ministries from Armenia, like Ministry of Justice, Education, Agriculture, and stuff. So these are the companies that have trusted their public speaking to us. And now, what we are going to speak about today. As you saw, the title of the lectures is Public Speaking Stages and Layers. So, public speaking has both stages and layers, and today we're going to examine what are they, how to deal with them, and what we can learn from those to have better presentations. So first of them, what are the stages of public speaking? I'm sure all of you at least once have been asked or requested to do at least a small public speaking session. Let it be telling a story in front of your friends or making a presentation in school and university because, well, yeah, speaking in front of your friends is also public speaking. So the first thing you are asked to do is, well, what are you going to talk about? Is the topic. And sometimes people think that the first stage is topic choice. But in fact, it's not like that. It's not the topic choice because more often you are already told the topic. For example, when Vlada talked to me, she said she wanted a presentation on public speaking. So she gave me a topic. But whatever you are going to do is called idea generation. And that's the first stage of public speaking. Because when Vlada said we need a lecture on public speaking, she gave me a topic. And then I was to come up with an idea. And my idea was to talk about stages and layers. So how do we form this idea? Like, how do we figure out which idea is good for each topic? There are a couple of things that you should consider when you are in this idea generation stage of yours. First thing, should be fresh. Like, you cannot speak about what a lot of people have spoken about and still be interesting to your audience. So you got to share something new. You could speak about something that everyone has spoken about. But you can find a new angle to that. So one first important thing about idea generation, it should be fresh idea. Second one, it should be innovative. Because, well, we're in the 21st century and you cannot be telling about things that are outdated for now and still be interesting to your audience. So whenever you are trying to figure out what is the basic idea, what is the main idea of your speech, imagine that it is the most innovative thing that you should do in your life, because it is going to be interesting for people if you're innovative and you're fresh. Let's not forget about the freshness. And the last thing is that you should have at least very basic background information about your audience. For example, when preparing this lecture, I asked Vlada who is going to be the audience of this presentation. And she sent me very basic information about you, like your age, what are you going to use this tricks and let's say tips for. And that's why I came up with the stages and layers. For example, if my audience would be, let's say, teenagers from 13 to 18 or 19, who are going to use mostly in school and who are just starting this presenting thing, I would definitely not talk about the stages and layers, but I would basically talk about what are the basis of public speaking, what are the most, let's say, first three things you should focus on. But having idea about your background, help to figure out that stages and layers are the good idea for this presentation. So first stage of public speaking is idea generation. Never confuse it with topic choice. You choose a topic, then you get deeper into idea generation, in which you should be fresh, you should be innovative, and you should know who you are going to present this for. Okay, so when you're done with your idea, what you're going to do the next? Most probably you are going to write a text, which is called presentation design. Well, there are people who say, I don't need text, I'm just gonna go on the stage and talk. Well, I totally respect that, but I would definitely recommend to have a text because it helps you to have a logical flow of your presentation. So we come to the second stage of our public speaking, which is presentation design. What do we do here? Especially in schools, when we are asked to write essays or I don't know, something in that form, we're just sitting and starting writing, like whatever comes to our mind, which can be good when you're writing, let's say, an essay or something of a written form. But in this, we have a big difference. You are doing it for an oral form. You're going to present it to people. You're going to perform it. So I'm going to say something that may not make a lot of sense, like from the beginning. So when writing a presentation, never start from the beginning. You should start from the mid, which, yeah, doesn't make much sense. But when you're starting from the beginning of a presentation, it looks like you are going somewhere, like it's a very flat, straight road, but you do not know where you're going. So that's not what we want in a presentation. And what I mean by saying start with the mid, do not just sit and write what do you think could be the best beginning. No. The first thing you are doing is you put one sentence that is the main idea of your speech. For example, when I was preparing for this lecture, I wrote one sentence. This is the sentence that everyone should remember after your speech. So my only sentence was, in public speaking, there are stages and layers. And to have a good presentation, we need to be aware of how to work with these stages and layers. This was one sentence. And I began this presentation from there. So I have this main idea. This is what I want people to remember from my speech. Then what I do, I start writing these ideas that are going to help me persuade that my main idea is right. As you know, the goal of every presentation is to persuade someone something. So to persuade that your main idea is right, you need to have supporting ideas. For example, in my case, when I had my main idea ready, I wrote 2 supporting ideas. First, there are 3 stages of public speaking. And then I wrote the details. What are the stages? What goes in each stage? Then I wrote there are 3 layers in public speaking. And then I wrote what goes in each layer of it. So I had 2 ideas that are going to support my main idea. And when you get deep into all those ideas, you basically have the whole presentation of yours ready. You have the skeleton of your presentation. And only after that, you can write a good beginning and a good ending. So my advice is never start writing your presentation from the beginning. Make sure you have your main idea, you have your supporting ideas, and you have all the ideas and information you want to tell about this supporting idea. When you have all that written, you definitely have the skeleton. After that, you can write the best beginning and the best ending for your presentation. This basically forms the second stage, which is presentation design. Now that we have the idea of what we are going to talk about, and we have our main script, like the text of what we want to talk about, this presentation is ready, we move to the last, third stage, which is called public speaking. So public speaking, as you see, has 3 stages, and public speaking itself is the last stage. Why does this happen, and how does this work? So when you are ready with your presentation and it's written on the paper, it should come alive. Because whatever is on the paper, it's a written language. It's not something you pronounce. And when moving from the second stage to your third stage, from presentation to public speaking, you definitely are going to have a lot of changes. Because written language and oral language are not really the same thing. Why do we call the last stage public speaking? Because when you're ready with everything to present, now you figure out how do you deliver this to public. First and most important thing to do in public speaking is to know that you need to make connection with the audience. When you have a written text and it comes oral, like it becomes an alive speech, and it is pronounced from you, it should get connected to people. Because people sitting in the audience are not waiting just to hear you read something from a paper, right? You're telling them a story. So this story should feel with them in connection. One very important thing to do in connection is to keep eye contact with people. Because you trust people who make connections with you. And if you do not do this connection with people and the audience, you're definitely not going to get their trust. It is really important. So when coming to last stage of public speaking, we should figure out that when we get on the stage, there is one thing we should keep in mind. Many people are very stressful on the stage because they think, what are people going to talk about me? Do my clothes look good on the stage? Am I looking good? My outfit is nice. So all of this is really important, but you should care for this before you go on the stage. It is okay to fix your outfit, your hair, everything before you're going on the stage. So when you get on the stage, it is not you on the stage, never. Whenever we are training people and we get to this last stage and our speakers are on the stage, I just stand in front of them and say, do not think that right now you are on the stage, because you are not. It is your idea. When you think that you are on the stage and you care, what are people thinking when they look at me? Do they like me? Do I look nice? You forget about the idea. So when you get to this last stage, always believe that it is not you, but your idea on the stage. And definitely your idea is way bigger than you. Okay? So you get on the stage, you have done all the fixing on yourself, your hair, your outfit, everything. And when you're on the stage, it is not you anymore. It is your idea, which is way bigger than you. And you have gone through all the stages and you're fully ready to present it to people. So these were the 3 main stages of public speaking. And as you can see from my arrows, they should follow one another. So firstly, it's idea generation. Then you turn this idea into a presentation, into a text, a script. And after that, you turn it into public speaking. You cannot miss one of the stages. You cannot stay at the first, at the second stage. You should get to the third one. It is important to follow this structure all the time. It is the base of having a logical flow of presentation. So this was everything I wanted to tell you about the stages. And now I'm going to move on to layers. So what is the difference between the stages and the layers? Because they kind of sound like similar, I'm sure. So the stages that we have already looked through with you are the steps that you are doing when you are asked to give a presentation. You design the idea, you design the text, then you design your public speaking experience. But what are the layers? Layers are the experience feelings that you have when you are doing a presentation. And there are slight differences between layers and stages, and now we are going to examine them. But please keep in mind that layers and stages are in correlation with each other. So you're going to see nearly the same thing: idea, presentation, and then public speaking. So let's get started with the layers. First layer is connection with the idea. We talked about idea generation, but many people get to the last stage, like they are on the stage, but their connection is still with an idea, which is a good thing to have, but not on the stage. So firstly, when you're starting to get ready, you should feel this connection with the idea, because if the topic is not yours, if you do not feel a deep connection with the idea, you cannot present it later. You cannot present it really well. So you should feel this connection with the idea, but it's the first layer of public speaking. When it comes to second layer, it is connection with the script. So when people are making these presentations, they are making the script, and we usually take months to prepare because we really think it is a hard work and we do not want to rush it. So it usually takes months to get ready for a speech. And imagine people are writing a script for like 2 months or 3 months, and they really feel this connection with the text. But it's a good thing to have at the second stage, because when you go on the stage and you are thinking of your script, we have such experience. For example, I'm in the audience and I'm looking at the speaker. The speaker is looking at me, but he or she doesn't see me because they see the text in front of their eyes, because the connection with the script is too strong. At each stage, we should finish the connection. We should let go of it and get to the next one. Because if you're on the stage, but if you still connection with your script, it is something the audience is definitely going to feel. And when we get to the last layer, it is called connection with the audience. And let me tell you, if you want to have a really impactful and a really good presentation, you should definitely get to the last layer. It is called connection with the audience. Why? Because, as I have said, audience learns from you and they trust you when they feel connection with you. When you have connection with your idea or with your script, you're kind of isolated on the stage. So you are standing on the stage talking about an idea you are connected to. But I am, as an audience, like out of that connection. I don't feel anything. And people do not learn, they do not trust, and do not remember something that they do not have feelings with. So if you want this connection with the audience, you should get through all these layers. Okay, so now how do we get this connection with the audience? When we come up with the connection with the idea and connection with the script, we are still in the process of preparing. But when we get on the stage, during the rehearsals, like when you're getting ready for your public speaking experience, you should try to cut the connection with the script. And how do we do that? When you're ready with your script and you go on a stage to try yourself before the event, before the speech, do not try it with your script. Okay, you can read it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, maximum 5 times. After that, you just throw it away because it is already yours. And when you do not think of every sentence that is written there, every single word that you pronounce like that, you start to feel the connection with the audience because you have the full idea in your mind, you have the basic understanding of your script, and then you start talking to the audience. And when you forget about the connection with the idea, forget about the connection with the text, and you have everything inside of you, you start to connect with the audience. You start telling it as a story. Because, for example, when I'm talking to you right now, I do not think about the script I had for this presentation. because I know what idea I'm speaking about. I know what is the basic logical flow of my presentation, but I'm not reading it and I have not read it many times because my idea right now is to connect with yourself and to tell this as a story to you. That is the last layer. That is the deepest level. And that's exactly where your audience starts trusting you and they really want to listen to you. So that is basically all the layers. If we go through everything once again, there are 3 stages in public speaking and 3 layers, and they are in correlation with each other. Both in stages and in layers, the first thing is idea. You should have it in mind. It should be fresh, it should be innovative, and you should know who you are telling it to. And you should feel a connection with it. Second thing, both in stages and in layers, is the script. To have a logical flow of presentation, you need to put it on the paper. It is important. And when doing it in written form, you should focus not on how to start writing it, like sit and start from the beginning, but you should focus on the main idea and then ideas that will help to prove it and to persuade it. And the last thing in both layers and stages is the connection of public speaking with the audience that you are making. Always keep this in mind when you are making a presentation, as this is going to help you to be more impactful and to make the deepest possible connection with the audience. So this is basically it. This is all I have for you for the stages and the layers. And now we can have our Q&A session, and I'll be waiting for your questions, Vlada. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emma. That was very nice and content. I was just, sitting there and making the list of mistakes I've been doing for the past years and the list of new things I'm going to learn and try. That was very nice. Thank you for that. So next I'm going to ask you a list of questions that we have collected. And after that, I'm going to give word to the people attending the meeting today if they have any questions left. So I want to start with the very beginning of the preparation. The thing is that most of the people, though they really want to go for public speaking or they need to, like in their workplace or in their school, university, but they are very nervous. The question is how to stop being afraid of public speaking if you want to, but you're slightly insecure.
Okay. I should say I'm very thankful for everyone who has asked this question, because I'm convinced that we have lost many businesses, many great public speakers just because of this fear and people who do not know how to overcome this. So thank you for this question. One thing everyone should know about this fear of public speaking, it is not only that it is for some people. Every single person on this earth is afraid to speak in front of a public. And this is because it is called evolutionary fear. It is not because of someone's insecurities, someone's background. No, it is our evolutionary brain fear. And it comes from like ancient times, because people knew when you were standing in front of your tribe and speaking about something, you took responsibility and you were in charge of something. So it was always fearful. So nothing to worry about. Main reason you are afraid of public speaking is because you do not know how to control your rush of adrenaline. So everyone, when gets on the stage, feels this adrenaline. And whoever tells you that they are fully comfortable on the stage, they do not feel any adrenaline, believe me, they are either lying or they are among less than 1% of people on the population that really don't feel it. But most probably they are lying, because like nearly everyone feels it. The most important thing is how to control this. There are little exercises that are going to help you. First of all, when you should go to the stage, before that, make sure you breathe naturally but deeply, like 3 to 4 times before going on the stage. You're just breathing to yourself. And when you go on the stage, never start the speech right away. You stand on the stage. We call this, you feel the roots from your body get rooted in the stage. So you're fully rooted there, and then you feel a couple of more times. Never think that on the stage you do not have this time. No. Whenever you're on the stage, you have all the time that you want. People should wait for you. So you get on the stage, you have this full breath a couple of more times. And the reason we do this is oxygen is the only natural thing that balances the stress level in our brains. So when we feel like this full breath, our brain starts to like balance this stress situation, let's say, stress that we have, and makes us more balanced and more ready to speak. And then when you start speaking, especially during the beginning of your speech, like the first 2 minutes, make sure that you are breathing in between the sentences. Because sometimes people go on the stage and they start speaking so quickly. And after like 5 minutes, you hear this. And first of all, the audience feels this. They feel you're nervous. And it is important not to let them feel this, because you are there to deliver a great speech. Because if you're on the stage, I always remind people of this. You have something great to talk about. So you're granted this idea. Do not take it. Just, it's a good thing. No, you really need to focus on that. So first thing is breathing. Second thing, not to be this stressful about, is as I focused about when I was telling about the presentation and public speaking, when you get on the stage, it's not about you anymore. Many people feel stressed, many people feel anxious on the stage because they have insecurities about their appearance. And it's still okay to have them, because it's again a human thing. But when you're on the stage, people are not going to care about your appearance if you are talking about the idea. If you focus on the idea and think that it is greater than you, it is bigger than you, it is bigger than your outfit, than your appearance, people are going to think the same way. And the most important thing I always tell about being afraid. I'm sure many of you feel this. Do you have one piece of clothing that you're super comfortable in? Like, it is perfect when you are in this cloth. And the reason most of the time is that because it is the cloth that you have been wearing for a lot of time. And it does not mean that it is like old or there are holes on it. It just means you have worn it out. So I always say this about the presentation. If you want a presentation to sound smooth, for you to be less stressed, wear it out. You need to try the same presentation hundreds of times. Steve Jobs, who is considered to be one of the greatest public speaker, the most influential speaker, he used to train one speech more than 100 times. He wears the speech out, because every time you are repeating the same text, you're repeating the same speech, it becomes yours. Like the clothes you have owned for years and it's comfortable for you. People who think that you just go on a stage for the first time doing this speech, it's going to be great. No, it's not going to be great, because you haven't tried it enough. If you're making a presentation, you should work on it like 2 or 3 months if you can afford that time. And you should train every day, at least once. Because when you wear this presentation out, you are less frightened to deliver it, because you know it. You know how to handle it. Like the shirts that you have, you know how to button it, how to unbutton it, because it's yours. So if you're frightened, always breathe before going on the stage. Breathe a couple of times when you are on the stage. Focus on the idea, not yourself. On the stage, it's not you, it's your idea. And make sure you wear out your presentation. Try it as many times as you can. That is the greatest thing to overcome this fear. And never think that there are people who are not afraid. Everyone is afraid. It's adrenaline. It's totally okay.
Okay, thank you. And now let's imagine a person who is still frightened and, try to breathe, everything, but somehow these are first public speaking experiences and still nervous. How to make people and the audience believe that you are confident while you are completely not?
Okay. I have read this question when you sent me. This is a very good nuance. Never try to look, sound, seem confident when you are not. Because there is one thing in public speaking, even if there are 5 people in front of you, and if you're faking something, be it confidence, be it smile, you are going to be noticed by them. They are going to feel that it is fake. So rather than trying to be confident, you need to really be confident. And you're definitely right, Vlada. There are people who are, after all of this, they are still afraid, and that's still okay. So when you know that you are going to feel this fear again, you are going to wear yourself out in a different way. Besides wearing yourself out, trying the presentation many times, you are going to start trying public speaking in front of the people that you are close with, that you trust and you are not afraid of. And they are not going to mock you. Because mocking is one of the greatest fears. You think in the audience, people are going to mock you, like, what are you wearing? What are you talking about? So the first thing you do, you're presenting in front of 3 of your friends or family, or I don't know, people who you are really close with, whom you trust, and whom you would like you wouldn't be afraid to show your insecurity. So first you try in front of your family or your friend. There are people sometimes who try in front of their pets as the first step. Then you get on your friends, and then you get on your family. A really good example for those who are yet in studying process, like schools, universities, or I don't know, any educational environment, it is really great to get there as the second or the third stage. Let me explain why. First stage is definitely friends or family or people that are neither of those, but you really trust them. And when you get to the educational institutions, it is usually very common not to be very, very, let's say, influential speaker when you're in a university, in a school. So everyone is not really well trained, not everyone is very confident, and they are still very considerate of each other. And you are in the atmosphere that is very similar to your background, mainly, with some exception. So my advice would be, if you're still afraid, start with your friends, your family, then go to the educational environment and try to make your audience every time a little bit bigger. Like if you're going to speak about one in front of 100 people, but you are afraid, start with 3 people in your family, then maybe 10 people in your educational institution, maybe 20 or 30 people, and then make it bigger. Because the smaller audience makes smaller stress. You're going to make it an easier way to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there is a narrative that has been existing in this public speaking sphere lately, that you should be completely honest with your audience. What if you're frightened of public speaking, you're completely afraid of this exact moment, and you just come on the stage and you tell the audience that you want to tell them this, but you're afraid? Is it a good idea? Will the audience be supportive, or you should just keep it to yourself?
Okay, so this depends on the audience, because you may have a very supportive audience and you may have an audience who is not really happy to see that you are, let's say, not fully ready, or you are still frightened. But there is one important thing. It is always important to be honest with the audience, because, well, there may be people who are not supportive in your audience, but if you're trying to fake it, they are definitely gonna know it. They are definitely gonna feel it. We have had cases of people going on the stage and fully forgetting what they were going to talk about. And most of the time, honesty won the case. We had people just go on the stage and said, I forgot what I was going to talk about. And we really had our, in one case, we had an audience of more than 500 people, and a young girl ran in front of them, and she was like, I forgot what I'm going to talk about. And most of the people were very supportive. And she took the time on the stage, and she regained all the ideas in her mind, and she just went on. There was a case, I do not remember who was that. There was a radio host who was hosting for the first time, and then she went online, and he couldn't pronounce a word. Not because he forgot, but just because he was afraid. And that was radio, he wasn't seeing anyone, but he was afraid. And the first thing he did, he just opened his mouth and said, I'm sorry, people, I forgot everything, and I'm too nervous. And after that, he just turned on music. People listened to that, and he just regained all the ideas. So it is totally okay to forget everything, to be too stressful to talk. Just be honest with your audience. Most of the cases, most of your audience is going to be supportive of you. And honesty is really the key. You can say, I forgot what I'm going to talk about, but that's a really cool idea. I had a really cool thing. And if you give me a minute, I'll definitely regain everything and start talking. So always keep honesty, even if in your idea, in your opinion, is the worst case scenario to do at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess that's a really good tip, because in that case you can even establish connection with the audience. And the next question is just about that. You have talked about honesty, and you have talked about the eye connection. What are the other ways to make the connection with audience and make them either listen to your performance or your public speaking, or even make them interested in what you are saying?
Okay, it is really crucial to make your audience interested in what you're saying. The first thing I would definitely recommend on this is to keep the presentation short. People do not like listening to presentations that are long. I'm sure all of you, when you go on YouTube and you see really good title, but the video is 30 minutes, you are not really likely to press on play. For example, in TED format, we have 18 minutes as the time limit of the presentation. But I never recommend going there because it's too much. No one wants to listen to 18 minutes. 15 is the maximum that I always recommend. But the most important thing is that you should not think about the minutes of the presentation. You should think about what do you have to say, and does all of your idea get in, let's say, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 7 minutes. We had a presentation from a guy that was 2 minutes, 40 seconds. And if I'm not mistaken, due to my information from a couple of years, it was translated into 20 languages because it was so influential. And it was about mocking, but it was too short, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. So it's not about how long you talk. It's about what you say. And when you think you are ready with your presentation, just go over it. Take out all the things that you think if you take out, the value of the presentation is not going to be lost. In that case, you are going, most probably, in most cases, we have at least 2 or 3 minutes worth of text get out. So if you think you're going to take it out and nothing is going to last from the idea, take it out, it's going to be shorter. And the shorter it is, the more likely your audience is to hear yourself. Second important trick how to get the interest of your audience. You should make a good beginning. If your beginning of the speech is not really interesting, really interactive, people are not going to listen to you. So for the beginnings, we always try to encourage to have questions because they are interactive. Maybe scenarios, because when you have a scenario, it always starts with imagine. And when you're in the audience and someone starts a sentence with imagine, you automatically try to imagine what they are saying. And whatever you get in your brain, it's a visual thing. And that is going to boost this interest in you. So the beginning is really important. Try to make a good beginning, either with a question or with a scenario or with an anecdote, or maybe you can get on the stage and make a connection right away with someone. Imagine you are talking about, I don't know, you're talking about fashion, you're talking about style, and you get on the stage and you try to find someone in the audience that is wearing, let's say, a red t-shirt. And you're pointing at them like, I like your red t-shirt. It's the best fashion style this year. Or it's the worst fashion style. So you're making a connection and everyone around them is like, who is he talking to? Is it this person? Is it really the worst thing? Is it really the best thing? Making it more interactive, as interactive as possible in the beginning, ensures that people are going to listen to you. But you need to keep this interest during the speech. And there is a rule. People remember and people pay attention to whatever that they can relate to and that they can feel something to. When, for example, you're talking about, I don't know, astronauts, you're talking about universe, not everyone can relate to that because not everyone is interested in that. Not everyone has dreamed of being an astronaut, but try to figure out what is one thing that everyone can relate. For example, if we're talking about the generation that has come before ours, there was a big tendency among guys to having a desire to be an astronaut. You can relate to that. Or you can relate to something that is very, very personal to everyone. Like all of us eat every day. That's too common. So try to make a connection with that. Like you go on a stage and you're like, can you imagine eating from a tube for 10 months? Everyone is eating every day, so they can relate to that. So try to make a connection to everyone in your audience. Try to bring examples that are generic to everyone. This way, people are feeling related and they have feelings, and this makes them interested. So these are all the main rules. Keep it short, have a good beginning, and have all the examples or ideas that you can have as generic as possible to relate to everyone.
Okay, thank you. You have also mentioned storytelling, and as I can see, it seems that storytelling have seized all the sphere of public speaking for the past 10 years or so. But is it effective now? Are there any alternative methods? Is there anything prospective, maybe something that will replace storytelling, or is it still the one and only pillar of public speaking?
You're definitely right. Storytelling is now the biggest key component public speaking has ever had during the whole period of its being. In my opinion and in my anticipation, there is no other concept that is going to beat storytelling, at least for a more couple of years. After that, I don't know what will happen, but definitely storytelling is still a key now. And the reason for it is connected to what I have just mentioned. Storytelling makes people relate to things. Because when you are telling about something and you are just bringing an example, let's say coronavirus, everyone is talking about it. And many people are talking how different governments are dealing with it. For example, this government is making new regulations, new restrictions. These are all facts. And well, everyone hears about them. But whenever you start telling a story of a nurse, of a doctor, of a person's family who died in coronavirus, people are more engaged. Why? Because they cannot relate to government as much as they can relate to a doctor. Because when you are speaking about a doctor and how they do not go home for like days, I can relate because I most probably have a friend, family member, relative who is a doctor. Or when you are speaking about a family of a person who died in coronavirus, why I can relate? Because I too have elderly people in my house most of the time, and I think of them. And I can relate because I am, everyone has close people who died because of the virus, but we can relate because we are in the same situation. And whenever you are talking about things like bigger things, for example, coronavirus or politics or something generic like education. When people speak about education, they speak about laws, they speak about how each country is dealing with it, how the educational system is built. But I myself may not connect it to the educational system, but I definitely went to school. I maybe went to university. I may have friends who are in the university. So, for example, schooling and the university are things nearly everyone can connect to, while educational system is not connected to every student. So when you are speaking about the big things, especially storytelling is a key. Because if you want everyone to relate, you should find the smallest, smallest circle, smallest chain that everyone can relate and start a story from there. For example, we had an expert who was talking about educational institutions, educational system, and how to reform those. And of course, we had educational experts in the audience, but also we had kids, we had university students who are going to be experts one day. So he referred to how everyday schooling happens at school. For example, after an exam, you feel like your brain is going to like explode because of all the information you have in it. But not all the teachers and all the experts can relate to that. So this is something very important, as I mentioned, to big topics. Try to find something small that can be related to everyone and make a story about it, especially real stories, because we do not want to create stories just because we want people to like feel connected. I'm sure if you are doing research on a topic, you definitely can find a real story. You can ask a lot of people, and real stories are the greatest thing. And that is the reason storytelling has become like this big thing in public speaking.
Okay. I also was thinking about moments where you have something like controversial topics, and I also got questions about persuasive talking. So what if you are going to talk on a topic that most of people think, for example, it's like plus or it's red, but you're gonna go on a stage and prove that it's minus or it's blue? How should you behave in that case, and how can you be persuasive, especially if the audience tend to think differently than you do?
Okay, so that is the very dangerous thing to do in public speaking, to talk about controversial things or to talk about things people have very strong perceptions about. Why I mentioned that you should know who you are talking to in the beginning of the presentation, because imagine talking about like Christianity principles in front of Muslims, or imagine talking about, I don't know, hair curlers in front of guys with very short hair who are never going to do that. So if people have strong perceptions about things and you are going to talk about something opposite, it's a very dangerous thing to do, but it's still a very challenging thing to do as well. So first and the foremost important, of course, again, just know who you are talking to, because their preferences and their perceptions are very important to you. And when coming to persuasive speaking, as you know, the basic goal of each presentation is to persuade someone something, that your idea is right, that this new product is good, that they need to buy this or stuff like that. So how do we persuade people? Firstly, people believe and they trust, and they get persuaded from people they know and they trust. So it is easy for our friends to persuade us, right, than just people in the market. And that is why we have talked about connection. Make connection with them. And it's not only about the eye contact, just you need to be one of them. When you get on the stage and you know you are going to talk about something that is fully different from what they have in mind, you should place yourself like you are one of them. You shouldn't place like, you know this thing, I know this thing, we're totally different. They are not going to believe you, because people do not learn and they do not believe people who are not like them. It's not about faking who you are, but it is accepting their beliefs as well. And there is a very, very small but important trick in how to persuade people, especially when they do not tend to believe what you say. For example, Vlada, say something that you are sure is right, or you believe it is like that.
Oh, let's start from something super simple. The grass is green.
Okay, the grass is green. So for you, the grass is green. For me, the grass is blue. If I in my presentation say the glass is blue, what is the first reaction that you are going to have?
Denial.
Exactly. And when people feel denial in their brain, they do not want to continue listening to your presentation. So if you are going to say something, you know, most of the people in the audience are not going to believe it, do not say it first, because people were like, I don't believe it, and they are not going to continue listening to you. So the first thing is I start and I say, you know, there has been a study done by the university research group of this university who did a long, let's say, 20-year study, and they started to water the grass with this ink, and it took them 2 years, and I'm explaining how it worked, and I'm showing you a picture, and I'm telling how everything happened. And when you just consider that the grass may be blue at some point, because I haven't persuaded you yet, but I'm giving the background of it. And when I'm coming to it, at the last place, I say, well, now the glass is blue. You are more likely to believe me, because first I proved it to you and then I stated it. Because when the first thing you state something that is the opposite of what people believe, people are going, if they are in online class, they are going just to hang up and they go. When they are in audience, they are going just to stand and leave. Never state something that is the opposite of their perception. Come from the persuasion. Show them, teach them, explain them how it worked. Because I'm drinking water and it's white. If you say this is black, I'm definitely not going to believe it. Explain me how this can be turned into black, and I may consider your opinion. So if you want to persuade someone something, let it be your friend going to cafe with you or a big topic in front of an audience. First, give how it works. Maybe what are the circumstances? Like, it would be better if the grass is green because it would look better with the sky. And how it happened, like you are coming from, how it's possible, explaining, teaching, what are the circumstances. And when they consider it, then you state it, and then they are going to be more likely to believe you.
Okay, so basically you should lay ground for your possible outcome with your arguments, but should you as well make people doubt and give place for doubts about their, former opinion? Like, shall you talk only about pros, something that proves your idea, or also make them doubt their idea?
Okay, that totally depends on the main idea of your presentation. Like, if the main idea of your presentation is to totally persuade this, for example, when the first car came to production, I'm sure the sellers, when they were pitching, let's say, I'm sure pitching words didn't exist back then. When they were pitching this idea to people who were going to invest money, people who were going to buy the cars, they didn't say, car is great because it can take you from here to there and it works perfect. Well, but you can still use the horses. They didn't let them doubt this. And the same way, for example, I'm always keeping the example of Steve Jobs because he is really the one of the most impactful ones. When he was presenting iPhone, he never really let people doubt that there is a phone better than that, because he set the ground for this is the best phone you'll ever have. He never during his speeches let people think that Android phones can be better. And for example, if you're doing business, if you're pitching an idea, you should never let a place for doubt. Well, you can honestly say if there are disadvantages of a device or I don't know, a product, and you can mention if you're working on it that you're working on it, but you should never let them doubt between your product, your service, your device, and another one. While when you're talking about an idea and you want just people, for example, if you're a teacher and you're teaching a concept and you want to awaken this thinking process, this I don't know, analysis, this influential thinking in their mind, you can definitely let them doubt. Like, I'm telling you that in grammar, this is the best way to form a sentence, and this is the easiest way to analyze the situation. But if you have another one, you can do it and you can compare the outcomes. If this works, this works. So it totally depends on what is the main purpose of your presentation.
Okay. I mentioned the pitching and business products. So basically, there are like so many options and versions of how you can present your speech and where and for what purpose. If we're talking, for example, about the elevator pitch for startups, which you've got the questions for, are there any distinctive features, maybe tips or advices on how you should do this and how you should speak in that moment?
Okay, so being honest, I am not too much in this business pitching and especially the elevator pitch style, because most of the coaching and training program we are doing is for, let's say, longer speeches and mainly like idea sharing process. But we have worked with a couple of pitching experiences, and what I can say is there is one thing that you can do, especially in the elevator pitch thing, is to have this wow moment for people. Whenever we talk about this during the longer talks as well, but you need to amuse people. Because if you're trying to sell me a product, sell me a service, tell me an idea in the elevator pitch format, you have very, very little time. And if you do not surprise me, amuse me, I'm not going to remember it later because you didn't make me feel anything. You may say something new, you may introduce a totally new product, but that may not surprise and amuse me. While if I'm surprised, if I'm amused, I'm definitely going to remember it at least once. I'm definitely going to associate it with something when I hear of it. So when you're doing it for business, for product, for services, it is going to work as an advertisement that's working. So you are going to make me think, feel, remember about it. And there is also one more thing when it comes to pitching. I'm sure many of you have heard about the example of when you're going to an interview, and especially if it's for business, everyone is like, sell me this pen. And everyone is trying to like, this pen has this feature, that feature, and that most of the time doesn't work. Why? Because that pen may be the greatest pen, but I may not need it. So the greatest thing to do when you're doing a pitch, especially in the elevator format, is to make person believe that they need it. There was a case, I don't know, remember, if I'm not mistaken, it's from a film, and that was the greatest example of trying to sell the pen. Someone came in and he was asked to sell the pen. He took the pen from the table and he made sure there is no other pen on the table. And he was like, "Can you give me an autograph? It would be very honoring for me." The other person was like, "Yeah, definitely, but I don't have a pen. I have one for you. You can buy it for me." So he made them feel that they need the pen. Because if you make them believe it's the greatest pen, it still doesn't work. You should make them believe that they need it. It's the same thing with every, let's say, top product nowadays. If the company makes you believe that you need it, even if you do not need it in real life, you're gonna buy it. Not because it's the greatest, but because it's you need it. Because it's fashionable, because it's trendy, because, let's say, I don't know, all millennials have, because you're not a millennial, you should not. Everything depends on you believing if you need it or not. That's the main thing in the pitching.
Thus, we have to create an emotional response, right?
Exactly.
Are there any tips on how we can do this verbally or non-verbally, or maybe even sometimes to make people remember us even without them noticing that? Like, some people talk about having some bright part of your dress or like a pin or something else. Are there anything like this?
Well, definitely, making people remember about you is one of the steps of people believing you, trusting you, and thinking about pitch, like the product, service, or whatever. Well, the bright part of the clothing or the pin, I wouldn't really believe that those could be, let's say, very impactful, rather than people seeing. I don't know how to better formulate it. I guess people seeing that you and them, you are similar. I don't know, saying in values doesn't make sense because in elevator pitch, no one really manages to get your values. But people, when they see that you are someone like them, it makes them more connected with you. So imagine that you are in a position of receiving an elevator speech from a person who's totally different than you. Yeah, you may remember them, but you do not feel the connection. As to just remembering, definitely as bright and as outstanding your outfit, your hair, your pins, your colors are, definitely they are going to remember you. But will they feel connection with you depends on how you will approach them. For example, the greatest difference can be, let's say, generation gap. Imagine someone talking to you, let's say using the vocabulary mostly used during the Soviet Union times. You're definitely not likely to buy that product because it doesn't fit your values. And imagine someone walking to you explaining something with exactly the same vocabulary we are using right now. Like all the English words, all the international vocabulary, all the youth is using today. So feeling part of what you are. So these two things, when you want just to be remembered, yeah, you're definitely right. Colors, pins, something extraordinary. And if you want the connection, you should be one of them. They should be one of you. This makes people connected very easily and on a subconscious level. They do not think about this. They do not realize this. They just feel connected because you're one of the type.
Okay, and also we got really a lot of questions about the useful exercises before actually starting public speaking. And today we have already talked about, reading the script, pitching to your hamster, then to your granny, then to your friends. Are there any other exercises that might be useful?
Okay, well, there are exercises, and something that I wouldn't call an exercise, but would call definitely something that will help you be really better at this is to know whatever you are speaking about. There are people who are like, I want to talk about this exact thing. That's great. But they have information only about this exact, like very little circle about the very big topic. And when you get on the stage and when you maybe ask questions, because in some formats you are not asked questions, you may be asked questions or you may forget whatever you have like already had there. if you do not know enough information about the topic, first of all, you can never be really confident about yourself on the stage, about the talk that you are doing. Second of all, the talk cannot be really impactful because it is going to cover only one small part of the topic. First thing to do about any public speaking experience, just make sure you have enough information about different aspects of the topic. This is just like a generic thing. When we come to exercises, there is a very, let's say, old and very much used exercise in public speaking. It's called you train yourself in front of a mirror. I would say never do that because that is very distracting. You are doing a presentation, you're talking about something, and most often people say train in front of the mirror just to say how you are moving, what you are doing, just to control your body. But when you are looking at the mirror, you focus on your body, you forget about the speech, and you kind of put yourself on the autopilot mode. And when you're focusing on your body, you forget what you're talking about. And if you train yourself to be like this, and when you go on the stage, you are not going to see your reflection. You are going to be on autopilot, just pronouncing words without thinking of them. And you are going to try to find your appearance somewhere, which you are not going to find. So never train. This is exercise not to do. Never train in front of the mirror. As I said, training in front of people you trust, like friends, family, this is good. Another exercise is breathing, which is done right before public speaking. If you feel very nervous, besides just breathing, you can walk. Like, you are going to have presentation in 5 minutes. You can take like 3 to 4 minutes to walk calmly alone. Do not try to talk to someone to take like everything up. Just walk by yourself. And then you can have like a minute breathing, then going on the stage. Another thing to do is just practicing without anyone. Just practicing at home by yourself, without mirrors, without anything. Because when you are pronouncing the text out, it's totally different than the text. And every time you pronounce the text, as I said, you wear it out. It becomes yours. And another example of exercise that I like the most, this exercise, is called improvise. When people have scripts, they believe that when they go on the stage, they are supposed to like have this text by heart, like every single sentence. But no. Imagine you have a 3-page script and you are supposed to deliver it in 5 days. Every time you are trying it at home, first of all, do not try with the paper. When you forget, never get back to that paper to see what is written there, because it is making a very bad connection with you and your script. Just try with yourself. If you forget very often, just write a small summary with the points. Point 1, I'm talking about global warming. Point 2, I'm talking about the reasons of it. Point 3, I'm talking about the circumstances. Point 4, I'm talking about the results and how to solve the issues. You put all these points, just the points, no sentences, no exact words, because this makes an addiction. You put the points on the wall, which is good because you need to walk, and you are trying your speech. You forget a sentence, get over it, get to the next point that you see on your wall. And every time that you are doing the presentation without the text, believe me, you are doing a totally different presentation. Every time you are using new sentence structures, every time you are using new words, new synonyms, and then you are restructuring the speech. You are making this sentence go to the beginning, the other one go to the end. So you are doing an improvise. And if you are doing improvised exercises like 20 times, it is totally enough when you go on the stage and you forget a word, a sentence, an idea, a whole point. You have done so many exercises that you are free to improvise in another way, because your brain knows there is not a strict way of this presentation. These are the ideas, and I'm very free to improvise it in different ways. Because improvise makes the best public speaking, and people who forget on the stage can improvise the way they want if they have done the improvise like at least 20 times. It is really helpful, and I always say that this improvising exercise is the best one to be like both confident and very calm, that even if you forget, you're not going to fail on the stage.
I would also want to ask you a little bit about interaction, because up to 80% of the people who were writing questions for this session, they said they need all this information and tips for their workplace or for their university or school. And in those cases, when you present some speech, whether it's a report or any other topic, you are very likely to be asked questions. And if it's question, let's say, asked in a goodwill, when people are just have just genuine interest in your topic, it's pretty understandable what you should answer and how you should respond. But what if the aim of and objective of the question is just to undermine your reputation? Whether you should answer this question or you shouldn't, how would you respond? Like, what to do in these situations?
Okay. Well, in the formats that questions are allowed, it takes you more time to get ready for the presentation. Because first of all, as I mentioned, you need to know more than the presentation. Because most of the time questions asked are about the information that you didn't cover because people didn't hear about the certain thing and now they want to know. So the more information you have about the subject, the more you're ready for the presentation. And if you know the people, like if it's people from your class or people you're working with, you're more likely to know who is going to ask what kind of question. So you're kind of more prepared to both bad and good influence. What to do if you've been asked a good question and it's easy to answer, you know, everything is cool, no tips on that because you know how to act. If you're asked a question with a good will, as you mentioned, but you do not know the answer, it is really, really okay to say that I do not have enough information on this and I'll need to do more research to come up and to answer to your questions. Maybe during next meeting, maybe we can have a talk about this later. This is mostly asked and offered and explained by teachers because imagine having a teacher with like 20 years of experience of teaching the same subject, but you still may ask something that have never been asked to her because she may never have a student with your mindset, or there is a new concept about the topic. So whoever you are, even if you're a person with decades of experience in the topic, you may still not have the answer. And it's totally okay to honestly say that I do not have enough information on this. But it gets really worse when the question is asked just to like put a very, very good, let's say, stain on your reputation. And when the question asked like that is, again, out of the information that you have, and you do not want to feel like, let's say, they are putting you under, you can say that you do not have enough information. But not to feel this pressure, you can mention that everything that was needed for, let's say, this project, this presentation, or whatever you were planning didn't anticipate, didn't cover, or didn't include anything that they are asking. And if they are asking something that it really includes, but you did not cover, that's a problem you had because it means you didn't investigate the whole process. But it's still good to mention that, you know, whatever you are asking is not in the frameworks of what I was creating for a certain project, let's say. It is good to always be honest, but when it is done, the question is asked just to show that you are kind of not ready. It is always important to, let's say, stand for your rights and show that you are ready with everything that you were supposed to, and even a bit more. You can mention that out of the framework, you are ready to answer to questions about this aspect, because these were related to what you were speaking. And you can say that whatever you are asking is in no way related to what we are speaking. If you are interested in that, maybe we can have a separate call, maybe we can have a separate meeting, and you definitely can be ready for that, just to show them that, well, you know, I can cover anything that I am supposed to.
Okay. As I understand, you do really enjoy the speech of Steve Jobs, right?
Yeah.
Are there any other people that inspire you in the sphere of public speaking? And maybe you have some really the best, some TED speeches that you consider to be the best or your favorite ones?
Well, yeah, there are people who, in my opinion, are really great public speakers. And it is based on both their charm, because this charm thing is not a skill to learn. It's just whoever we are. And something I really appreciate in public speaking is that, especially in the format I am working with, because very often public speaking is in association with theater or any other kind of performance. Well, public speaking is a performance, but in theater world, people are performing as other characters. And in the public speaking concept that we are working with, it is being totally the type of yours, not putting people in like a square. You should be like that. No, everyone is the way they are. And I really appreciate speakers who can just let that charm go, and they are presenting with everything that they have in a very honest way. So one of the speakers they really admire, her name is Sarah Kay, and she has done a speech in TED and in TEDx like more than 10 times maybe, which is, I guess, a record, because not many people get these many speeches. Yeah, it's not common in TED or TEDx to have a lot of speeches. Sarah is she's a poet, and she is I don't know, let me remember, there's a type of poetry, it's called, if I'm not mistaken, open word poetry or oral word. It is a oral way of poetry, and it is always delivered by a person pronouncing it. It's never delivered by a written way. So Sarah is a master in it, and she's teaching it. She is doing poetry in different projects, and she has done speeches in TED, most of which start with a poem. And that's very, very honest, because she has her own style and she has her own way of telling a story. And one of the poems that she has done, and it is her biggest speech at TED, it starts, if I have a daughter, I am going to paint the solar system on the back of her hands. It is the beginning of the poem, and it is very exciting, as it really triggers a question among audience. Why do you want to do that? And then she answers why she wants to do that. And that's the poem. And I would really recommend checking it out. And all of her speeches, she's really great at doing that. And there are people from our own, like Armenian TEDx speakers, who are very, very inspiring for me. I should say there are two speeches I'm very, very they're my favorite ones. First, it's called Breasts Guiding Your Navigation. The abbreviation is BGYN. It is a lady talking about the perceptions and misconceptions about women and how women breasts are guiding their navigation according to society perception. The second one is about finding your story, because it's about a success, like wave to success. Many people are talking that to succeed in whatever you are doing, you should believe in your idea, you should be courageous, you should go after what you want. And we have the CEO of Teach for Armenia, Larissa, who is telling that in order to succeed, you should find your own story. Because if you do not belong in a story, you can succeed there, even if you want it really, really much, and even if you go after that. So those are among my top favorites among all the TED speeches.
Thank you. That was very interesting, and I'm pretty sure that after this, I'm gonna rewatch this and just go googling these videos and get super inspired. But actually, I am already very inspired by your presentation, your speech, and your answers to our questions today. It was very useful and very helpful. So I'm very thankful for you that you agreed to come to us and join us and tell about this.